Welcome to Main Street Moments and Beyond. I'm Brian, along with Kathy. Hey, Kathy.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. Well, it's May the 4th, and we watched The Rise of Skywalker today, which is on Disney+. I've seen it before.
Yes.
I saw it in the theater. Kathy saw Rise of Skywalker for the first time today,
Yes.
and so we thought we would just talk about Rise of Skywalker.
Well, it's May the 4th, and it just came on Disney Plus today, like you said. And I said to you, I'm going to watch Rise of Skywalker. I wasn't going to watch it till the weekend, but I thought, let me watch it now because it's May the 4th, and we can do a podcast about it. So we're going to talk about the movie, but there are going to be spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie yet, listen to this podcast after you watch the movie. Because we are going to talk about the movie,
heavy
the
spoilers.
ending,
heavy spoilers,
everything, heavy spoilers. We're letting you know. So again, if you haven't seen the movie yet, please listen to this after you've seen the movie for yourself, so you can appreciate our analysis.
Well, I'll give just a brief overview of what I think about the movie, and then we can talk about some of the details. Okay, I guess give a brief overview. I am not a fan of the prequel movies so much. I'm talking about, episode 1, 2, and 3. And I am no fan of this entire new trilogy whatsoever. I'm a Star Wars originalist. And I got to tell you, though, the first two movies in this new trilogy are awful. The second one is not even watchable to me. But Rise of Skywalker, I think, is pretty good. I think Rise of Skywalker is pretty good. I cried in several parts of the movie, and I think they did a very good job cleaning up the mess of the first two movies in this new trilogy. Right? I mean, is that fair to say? Would you agree with that?
I agree. Now, I did not see the second movie in this trilogy yet. I'll have to watch it, but I saw Force Awakens, which I hated because they killed Han Solo, and once they killed Han Solo, I was done. And there were so many other things about it I didn't like because I'm like you. I grew up with the original 3 films.
Yeah.
And the prequels, I didn't love the first one for whatever reasons. I have my own reasons. But I did like the third movie where Anakin becomes Vader. I thought that was very good. Anyway, but I'm like in the original saga like you, and I don't like the First Order. But I have to say, I love this movie. I was crying throughout it. It was very emotional for me. It tied in so many loose ends, and everything made sense. You know what I mean? I was afraid that it would try to tie in the ends and it wouldn't make sense. Like it would be gratuitous, or it would be just not be right. It all made sense. The only thing I didn't like about it was I know that they had Leia training her, and I think it would have been better if Luke had trained her, but that would alter the whole storyline. But anyway, and I didn't like that Kylo died at the end. I think it would have been much cooler if he stayed alive because he redeemed himself and he was good. Yeah. But other than that, I thought it was great. I loved it.
The two parts in Rise of Skywalker that, and again, I do like Star Wars other than the original. I mean, I saw Star Wars in the theater in 1977. I was 6 years old. So, so I go back. But I do like other Star Wars. I think Rogue One is the best Star Wars movie ever made, except for the original, because it wouldn't make sense without the original, but it's really better than...
Rogue One is amazing.
Rogue One is
perfect.
Yeah. I mean, Rogue
movie.
Rogue One is to Star Wars what Cobra Kai is to the Karate Kid. I mean, there's no, in my mind, it's a pretty much perfect movie except for the Forrest Whitaker part, but I'll tune that out. I love Star Wars Rebels, which is on Disney Plus, the cartoon series. I didn't watch it when it was on originally. I started watching it a few weeks ago. It is spectacular. Mm-hmm. And of course, The Mandalorian. So it doesn't have to be, other Star Wars can be made that I will enjoy and be a fan of. This trilogy, I'm not a fan of, but in this one, there's two scenes in particular that are very emotional, very good, and make it seem like, okay, this is Star Wars. And they both involve Chewbacca. When they come back to the Rebel base and Chewbacca finds out that Princess Leia has died, I mean, I'm like tearing up now thinking about it. Chewbacca collapses, and he's the last one. Yeah. They're all gone now, except for 3PO and R2. But the humans, they're all gone. Han's gone, Luke's gone. Yeah. Leia's gone. And remember, Chewbacca was in the Clone Wars. So he knew Yoda and all of them because he was with
Yeah.
he was in the original in the prequel trilogy. Chewbacca was in that. So he's the last one, and that when Chewbacca collapses and is crying, that was like wow. And then at the end, when they give Chewbacca the medal, which is from the
yeah.
original movie, because he didn't get a medal in the movie. They gave it to Han,
Right.
they gave it to Luke, and they didn't give it to Chewbacca. And I'm assuming that was Luke's medal because that character, she had all of Luke's stuff in the basement of her bar, remember, in
Right.
The Force Awakens. So I'm assuming that's Luke's medal, or maybe it's Han's, but I'm assuming it's Luke. So those two parts, those two moments were important to tie it into the original.
Well, I cried throughout the movie. Anytime there was any kind of throwback to the original movies, I got very emotional. And seeing Lando with Chewie, I got emotional. And when Harrison Ford came up, I just started bawling. And I was like, oh my gosh. But you know, looking back, I wish they hadn't killed Han Solo. And I think he would have been such an interesting part of that trilogy, with Ben struggling with him and being good and this and that. They just killed him off, and they kind of just didn't go very deep with that. So that was a mistake, obviously, for me. But having him come back, I thought was amazing.
One thing about Rise of Skywalker that's strange.
I started bawling when they showed Han Solo.
It's a little strange. And Rise of Skywalker, before it came out, it was released that this was a movie that had been made to fix mistakes of the first two in the trilogy. And, a big example of that is Luke Skywalker is barely in the movies. He doesn't speak in the first movie. In the second movie, he's in it very minor, And this, they bring him back as a Force ghost, and he's like doing all kinds of things. They bring Luke back, which I kind of liked. But at the very end, when Rey goes back to Luke's house, and she goes down there, that's pretty emotional too. She goes down into the area, and you get to see where Luke was with Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru when he had the blue milk for the first time, and and when you see the Force ghost of Luke and Leia, I really would like to have seen with Luke and Leia, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Yoda.
And Yoda.
Yeah. I think they should have at least Anakin and Obi-Wan should have been there at least, and by the way, and Kylo should have been there too. But
yeah, I agree. I think they all should have been there. And it was very cool that it ended on Tatooine, because everything kind of comes full circle. And you see her looking at the two sons, like Luke, and standing in the same position kind of thing. And it was very emotional. I really liked the story. I thought it wasn't too complicated. It wasn't overly complex where you had different storylines, side storylines that were going on, and where you're like, wait a minute, what's happening here? It was one story. It was very linear, like they had a problem, they had to solve it, and they went to different places, and it was very easy to follow, I thought. And I loved that they brought back Palpatine, but I had said to you that I wish they had this storyline for the first of these trilogies.
Yeah.
Where Palpatine had come back, and she was his granddaughter, and you found all this out in the first of the three. And then you spend the three movies watching Kylo go through his storyline and go through his arc as a character. And then they spend the whole three movies fighting Palpatine. And then it's it's revisiting everything. So I kind of felt that, like, if they would have done this in the first of these three, it would have been so amazing. But they did finally tie it all together.
That was not,
happy about
you know what though, Kathy? That was not, okay. I don't know how many people picked up on this or not, if it was clearly stated in the movie or not. That was not really Palpatine. Palpatine was killed in Return of the Jedi. That was a clone of Emperor Palpatine.
How do you know that? I didn't pick up on that.
I don't remember if they stated it in the movie, but I've done a lot of reading about the movie since I saw it originally in the theater when it came out, and they talked about that. That was a clone.
I don't know if that's 100% true. Yeah. Because I don't see them talking about that. In the movie, they made reference to him dying, and they said, well, how is he alive? And they kind of just brushed it away, because you don't really see him. He kind of died the same way Han Solo did. He fell down a long shaft and everything, so you really don't see. But it was really cool that they go back to the Death Star, the second Death Star on
It's another moon of Endor. It's not the forest moon of Endor. I guess this is the ocean moon of Endor. I don't know.
And they go back to Endor and they see the Death Star where it had crashed in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And they go on there, and then she's in the Emperor's chambers where he had fought with Luke and everything. I thought it was really cool. There were a lot of throwbacks to the first 3 films, which was very cool and very amazing. I liked it. I mean, there really isn't anything that I could say.
And they did bring
a few things I would change.
They did bring one character back in a cameo whose name I don't remember, but the actor is Ewan McGregor's uncle, who was in the.
That was amazing.
He was in the original Death Star battle in the original Star Wars, and he's an admiral.
And he was flying his ship, and he was.
Yeah.
He had like one line, but I
good shooting
him right away.
He said, "Good shooting, Lando." He said, because he also fought in Return of the Jedi. So that was nice.
Yeah.
They brought him back.
Yeah, they brought him back.
Well,
he's Ewan McGregor's uncle. So
he
was in the original movie.
I know a lot of people, they don't like these new characters, and I don't really care for this storyline either. With Rey and things like this. It's not the movie trilogy I would have made. But the problem is, this is what people got to accept. They made these movies too late in life for Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill to come back as the main leads like we know and love. At the time when they made the prequel trilogy would have been the time to do an updated Star Wars trilogy with Luke, Han, and Leia, but Harrison Ford was such a big movie star back in that time, he wasn't going to go back to do any Star Wars movies. I mean, it just wasn't going to happen. He was a huge, huge top movie star then. Now he's doing a cameo in this movie, and I'm sure they paid him a lot.
Yeah.
So
I wish they would have started these about 15 years ago, like you said. And I would have done it like this would have been the first of the 3, where you find out that Kylo is trying to finish what his grandfather to finish what his grandfather couldn't.
Well,
and delve into that.
There wasn't a lot of
it here.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with this new trilogy. Okay, and they're never too clear who is the First Order, where did they come from, and was that Coruscant that they blew up in The Force Awakens, where they said the Republic is gone now? It was very strange and not. There wasn't a lot of depth to what was going on, with that planet killer they did and all of this. So there's a lot
of holes in the first 2 films. Yeah. There's a lot of holes, and they plug up a lot of those holes in this movie.
I thought so. I thought they did all right. Yeah,
they do.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it, and they do answer a lot of. They just fill in a lot of the holes, like I said. I think they did a very good job about it, and I didn't mind the new. I know people were complaining about the horses and the bikes and the new vehicles and stuff like that, but they have new vehicles in every movie. When they had episode 6, they had the those bikes they were on, those were new.
What a lot of people don't like about the speeder bikes that the stormtroopers have in Rise of Skywalker is it seems to be less advanced technology because they have tracks on them that go on the ground as opposed to being pure hover bikes.
But it was cool how they launched them into the air. I thought that was pretty. Yeah. The bike lifted up and launched them, so it gave you something different and unexpected.
Well, everybody has their fantasy movie, but you had a very good idea. You had a very good idea. Before this movie came out, before we saw it, when it was about to come out, you had a very good idea for, before the movie came out, in the trailer, you see the part where they have C-3PO's head open and his eyes are red. And you had a very good idea. A lot of people forget Anakin Skywalker built C-3PO, and we saw it in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And you had a very good idea, and I think this would have been spectacular.
That blown people's minds.
Yeah, that if in The Rise of Skywalker, we found out, because when we saw in the trailer with his red eyes and they were doing something to C-3PO, this is where you got the idea from in the trailer before the movie was released. It would have been absolutely amazing if we found out that all along, through all these movies, C-3PO was still working for Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, and he had been a spy for Darth Vader through all of this. Because 3PO, he's in everything, all right? He's in every movie
I mean,
from
I know
episode
that
1 to
might have
this.
yeah, I know that might have upset people, but I thought it would have fit in because everybody gives 3PO a hard time, and nobody really likes 3PO for whatever reason. He rubs people the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought when I saw the red eyes on the preview, I didn't know anything about the story or anything. And I said, man, it'd be crazy if 3PO's been a spy and he's been working for Anakin this whole time and reporting to him,
Darth Vader,
and to Vader and everything.
Wouldn't that have been
and
something?
Now he's working with Kylo, but that obviously would.
That idea is too good for them to have used.
Yeah,
but that would have been
would not fit into this.
That would have been unbelievable.
And why did the guy that was the spy? Why
General
did he
Hux?
want Kylo? Why did he want to see Kylo?
General Hux never liked Kylo. Yeah, General Hux. He never liked Kylo. There was in the first 2 movies before Kylo became Supreme Leader, there was competition between the 2 of them. They were like equals in authority, and they were kind of competing for who was running things in the First Order. So that's why he wanted. That's why he wanted Kylo to. You know, and one thing they did in this movie, though, is they opened up the door to all these characters and storylines, like the main general that executed General Hux. You know, he talks to Palpatine and talked about how he served him in the Empire. So I don't know who he is, what was his role there. And then at the end, Lando is talking to this stormtrooper girl. You know, and they're going to go find out things about her. They opened up all these things that
might become a book.
Yeah, they seem like whole novel series. Each one of these things is a new series of novels.
Well, the character, I thought it would have been cool. The character that you mentioned, he's the British guy who said he worked with Palpatine.
They served him in the Empire, yeah.
I thought it would have been cool if they would have brought in an actor from the original movie who was on the Death Star.
Someone we know.
With Tarkin. And he was like, back then, an extra. He was just like a foot soldier or like new into the academy or new on the ship. And then they bring him back, and now he's like a high-ranking guy, and they bring back the same actor, and people are like, wait a minute, this guy was in episode 4, and he was standing
that would have been great.
To Tarkin.
Yeah.
He's standing next to Tarkin. He's not saying anything, but
That's
there
right.
he is. I thought that would have been little things like that.
Yeah, that would have been great.
They brought back Ewan McGregor's uncle. Little things like that are what really make it special.
A lot of people think
really taking extra time.
A lot of people think, and I've even heard Mark Hamill say this: the magic that was Star Wars, you're not going to find that. It's gone. It'll never come back. Now, if you weren't around,
He's right about that.
I don't know. I disagree with that because I've seen it.
Think so?
I've seen it. Yeah. Now, if you weren't around when the original trilogy was in the theaters, I mean, you know, it's a magic that people can understand. I mean, the phenomena that was Star Wars. When the first trilogy was out, I don't think when Hunger Games came out, I saw the first Hunger Games movie, I thought, I never read the books. I thought, this is so...
No, but I think you could equate it to Harry Potter. Equate it to the Harry Potter movies, that level of excitement and that level of fandom. I think you could equate to that.
Yeah, I think so. Harry Potter. When I saw that first Hunger Games movie, I told our daughter, I was like, "This is the Star Wars of your generation." I mean, you know, I guess it wasn't, but it was pretty big. But yeah, Harry Potter is like it was bigger than even Harry Potter, though. It was bigger than Harry Potter.
It was bigger, but I would say the Star Wars series. You know, Harry Potter was 8 or 9 movies, and they're now making more. I would say those two were almost at equal. Star Wars is definitely, in my opinion,
the original trilogy. With the original trilogy, there was never merchandising with a movie like with the original trilogy. You know, there was so much new. You had to be there and experience it to really understand it. But with that being said, like in Rogue One, for example, Rogue One, when you watch Rogue One, to me, it looks like the original trilogy movies. There's a lot of throwbacks, you know, and when they're having the battle at the end of Rogue One, remember that Rogue One takes place a couple days, maybe the day before the original Star Wars movie, Episode 4, A New Hope, takes place, right? It takes place like the week
before all that happens.
Yeah, and the last battle is like the day before, maybe even the same day, because at the end, Leia leaves in her ship and Vader goes after her, and that's when we first meet them in the original movie. So it might even be the same day as that battle. And in that battle, Red 5 gets destroyed, and then Luke becomes Red 5. So there's these kind of things you can still and the Mandalorian has just blown everyone's mind away. So the magic can still be captured. It's just not in this new trilogy movie. But the Rise of Skywalker, keeping in mind what they had to work with, right?
Oh, I think they did a
really good job.
I really do.
Yeah.
Now, do you think it's believable that Leia trained with Luke? Is that believable to you? They show that really cool scene where they're training in the woods. It's like a blip. And they use computerized whatever to show their faces after they fight. It's pretty cool. And it's like a 2-minute thing where you see them training. He's training her, and he talks about it. But
I don't buy any of that.
I just don't buy it.
I don't buy that.
I love Leia, but I don't see her. When I think of Leia, I think of her with a blaster, and
no, I don't buy it at all.
That's how I think of Leia. She's like Han, you know. I don't see her with a lightsaber, and it just wasn't believable.
No, I don't buy it at all, and I'll tell you why I don't buy it. And we don't really know. I mean, I know they have the expanded universe, which are the novels, which I've not read the expanded universe. Right. I'm sorry, guys. But Disney, the expanded universe was considered canon by Lucasfilm until Disney bought Lucasfilm. It's no longer canon. My idea, after Return of the Jedi, I imagine Luke was doing his training of the new Jedi Order, and Leia was involved in the government of the New Republic and establishing that. She didn't have time for any Jedi training, in my mind.
Right. She's more of a politician to me. Of course, and then in this movie, everybody's a general. Leia's a general, Lando's a general, then Poe becomes a general, and Finn becomes a general. They're all generals here.
Ex-stormtrooper, they make a general,
Yeah, and Kenobi was a general, so they're big on generals. You know, there's like
all Jedi. From
a regular guy to a general, nothing.
All the Jedi are generals. In the original, the Jedi Masters are all generals. Yeah, Yoda, all of them were generals. Ahsoka wasn't because
is that just their?
Well, they're Jedi Masters. Ahsoka was not a general because she was not a Jedi Master. She was a commander. She wasn't a general. You know, like they're bringing like in the live action Mandalorian in season 2, they're bringing in Ahsoka Tano from the Clone Wars and from Star Wars Rebels. I mean, that is exciting.
She needs her own movie. And there's so many great characters and so much they could have done with it. But now they said that's the end of the Skywalker saga, and they just greenlit another Star Wars movie. I don't know anything about it, but a guy who directed one of the Mandalorian episodes, he's got like a Hawaiian name. I can't Tika something. And he's supposed to be really good. He did one of the Thor movies. I think he's doing another Thor movie. And he is directing another Star Wars movie, but it's not going to have anything to do, from what I've heard, at all with Skywalker at all.
Well,
but they've got to have Jedi in those.
The thing with the
Star Wars has to have Jedi.
The major problem I have, there's a lot of problems I have with this new trilogy that just ended with the Rise of Skywalker. One, Rey is the savior of the Force. It was Luke. Luke was the chosen one. They thought it was Anakin. It was wrong. It was Luke. So what Rey does that upsets a lot of fans, including me, wipes out Luke. Luke is insignificant because he was not the chosen one. Those were all lies. Everybody was wrong, and it was Rey that's bringing the balance to the Force.
With Return of the Jedi it wraps up. You know, he walks her
but
dancing,
it didn't.
And everybody's
it didn't.
Happy.
They were wrong.
That's like, they've destroyed the second Death Star, and that's it.
They were wrong.
Vader's dead and everything like that. So I guess, now Kylo brings it back and starts things up again, and then the Emperor and everything.
Well, we find out the Emperor was behind everything all along. He never went away, is what they're telling us.
Exactly. But why deceive everybody? Why not just say who you are?
It makes no sense. It makes
when you really think about it, like why you understand when you see this movie that they're trying to fix a lot of things they screwed up.
Yeah, but they did a lot of damage, and it's hard to fix what you've done so much damage to. But I do believe Rey wipes out the whole significance of Luke. I don't. Quite honestly, I don't. I know Disney doesn't care. I do not consider this new trilogy to be part of the Star Wars canon. To me, because it doesn't fit. It's not right. Like Mandalorian, so far, unless they do something crazy, fits in. Takes place a few years after Return of the Jedi. Everything seems to fit in. It makes sense. It's not undermining the canon.
On that. I think this movie fits in. I didn't like Force Awakens, and the second one I didn't see it. I'm going to watch it soon. This movie I liked. I think it fits in fine, and I have no problem with Rey taking her place.
Canceling out Luke. Luke?
I don't see it that way.
Yeah.
She is on another path. She is a Sith. She is Palpatine's granddaughter. She has Sith blood in her, just like Anakin. Anakin becomes a Sith. and Kylo are kind of have the same issues with. They have that, super powerful, and they have that evilness in them. But I have no problem with her, but I don't see her canceling Luke. I see her on her own.
Another thing in this movie, there's a couple things in this movie that I thought that
Palpatine.
Yeah, a couple things in this movie I didn't care for. Also, another one is the horses riding on top of the Star Destroyer. That seemed a little strange to me. That seemed
different.
That seems a little ridiculous to me. And who's the new little robot? I like the little robot. He's cute. BB-8's friend.
Yeah, I like him. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Dio.
Dio, yeah, they sell him. You can buy him at,
But he wasn't in the movie very much.
That's merchandising.
He was a little more to do.
They sell that robot all over the place. I see them selling it at Epcot. I see him at Galaxy's Edge. They created that character to sell robots. But Well,
he wasn't in the movie very much at all.
I like that little robot, Dio, but he seems to be like an abused robot. Like when Rey goes up to reach out to him, he backs up and says, "No, thank you, no, thank you." It's like his previous owner abused him. And I don't know why they have to have this abused, psychologically damaged droid. To me, I don't like that at all.
Well, I think I don't know why they put it in there, just to make his character a little more interesting, and maybe to make him really appreciative of the fact that he's now with people that are nice to him. And that's like a new concept to him, that he's around people that are helpful.
Yeah, Poe seems to be overly rude to 3PO. The way, the interesting thing about C-3PO and George Lucas, and how much of a visionary of the future George Lucas was when it comes to C-3PO, and I'll tell you guys what I mean. Since the original movie in 1977, everyone is always rude to 3PO. They're always telling him to shut up, to power down, to not talk, to leave it.
Yeah,
and
except Chewie.
Yeah,
Chewie likes him.
When I was growing up watching these movies, it always bothered me how rude people were to C-3PO, because I guess I saw him as a person, not a droid. But if you think about it, this is how much of a visionary George Lucas was. The way that everyone talks to C-3PO in these rude ways is the way we all talk to Alexa today, isn't it? Isn't that how people talk to Alexa?
You think people are rude to Alexa?
I think, shut up, Alexa. Turn yourself down. No, okay, enough, Alexa. Yeah.
Well, but they're not rude to R2 or BB-8. Why are they not rude to them, but they're rude to 3PO? I think it's because 3PO is just a know-it-all, and he never stops,
Yeah.
I guess he just gets on each other on their nerves.
And R2D2
doesn't do much other than correct everybody.
And why is R2D2 hardly in this movie? Rise of Skywalker. I am happy. It did make me feel good though that R2D2 was with Leia when she died. Yes. But and I know Carrie Fisher died unexpectedly and kind of left them in a bad spot here. But why have they written out R2D2 in all of these movies so much? Why can't he travel around? Why do they have BB-8 now Dio? R2D2 should be much more involved. And it really bothered me in the first two movies when, Luke went to that island. I don't believe in a million years Luke Skywalker would leave R2D2 behind and go to that island. He would take R2 with him. And it really bugged me that he left, and R2 for all those years was in a corner with a blanket over him with his power down because he was suffering from depression. I don't see Luke doing that to R2.
Well, that's why they're trying to correct things they did, because stuff like that in the first two movies really did not sit well with the fans. So they did bring R2, and he didn't have a main role, but he was there. It was good to see him. He was with Leia.
When she died,
and they did a whole thing where they put the plans in him, and there were a lot of throwbacks to the first film, and a lot of throwbacks. There were a lot of parallels, which I liked, and I even said to you, I feel like I'm watching episode 4 sometimes when I watch this, because they put plans in R2, and Poe was very funny. He kind of reminded me of Han Solo, the way his hair looked and the way he was dressed and the way he was kind of sarcastic. And I said, the dynamic is similar, and I guess Finn is supposed to be kind of like, but there was no sexual tension between Rey and Poe or any of the characters like that. That's what
people when they were in Rise of
films.
Skywalker, when they were in that quicksand thing,
her and Kylo.
Yeah, when they were in that quicksand thing in Rise of Skywalker, and Finn says, "Rey, I never told you." What they have said what they have said is that he was going to. It's been rumored that he may be a Jedi, have Jedi powers, and that is what he was thinking of telling her. Not "I love you" or something.
I don't know.
I've heard J.J. Abrams talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of those things they kind of threw in there to make you wonder.
These are some of the things that bug me. Okay, when they go to that planet where they find Dio and they find the Sith language on that dagger, and they run into Lando. Lando said that he and Luke went to that planet, found that guy's ship, looking for this information. Luke Skywalker couldn't find it, but Rey goes over there with Poe and Finn, and they find it in 5 minutes. What Luke Skywalker couldn't find with Lando Calrissian, they've really trivialized Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is one of the great American heroes.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Well, she said that he got close, but I get the impression she's more powerful than Luke.
Well, she's more powerful, but she's had no training, and Luke is very powerful, and he is the hero of all of Star Wars. In fact, he's named after George Lucas, named him after himself. Luke, you know what I mean? And they just totally cancel out everything that is Luke Skywalker in this new trilogy, and that burns me.
I agree with you on that, but I do feel over the 3 films that it's very light on Luke, where it should not have been. He should have been still a big player, and all that stuff. But we're just talking about this movie, and I feel that they brought him in and brought everything kind of full circle. And I really did like the movie a lot. I mean, there are a few little things, but you could do that with any film. There's very few films you can be like, that was perfect, I wouldn't change a thing. So there are a few little things I might have changed, but overall, I really liked it. And if you love the first 3 films like I do and like you do, we grew up watching them, it really has a lot of throwbacks to that, which you're like Ewan McGregor's uncle, his friend. And, she's flying Red 5, which is so cool, wearing Luke's helmet. I mean, it's really those kinds of things. You're like, oh my gosh, look at that. There's a lot of Easter eggs and stuff like that, which I really appreciated. Yeah. And like I said, the story was pretty linear and didn't go off in different tangents. It was easy to follow. I thought it was a good story. Well, and I did think it filled a lot of holes that were missing.
And Rise of Skywalker, I've seen it twice. I saw it in the theater. I saw it on Disney Plus. I could watch it again. The first 2 movies of this new trilogy, I may never watch them again in my life. You know what I mean?
Well, I didn't see the second one, but I heard it was really boring.
You're going to watch that one by yourself, Kathy. I'm not going to rewatch that one. There's no way. I could watch The Force Awakens again, but no, I couldn't watch that. I couldn't watch that one.
Yeah, I'll have to watch it for myself. But this movie I loved, and I said to you, I'm going to go in with no expectations. But I remember when you saw it in the theater, you came home and you said you liked it. You said it made you cry. Yeah. Your eyes were tearing up in a couple spots, which is always a good thing when you watch a movie that has that nice nostalgia feeling. And so I just went in with no expectations today, and I really thought it was a good movie. I'd give it 4.5 out of 5. I thought it was not as good as Rogue One or Episode 4.
And it's really
maybe a 4.
It's really unfortunate that if you watch the original Star Wars movie in particular, Carrie Fisher is in that first movie is so good. And she lost her ability to act, and that's unfortunate.
Her acting's not so great.
But I'll tell you, J.J. Abrams, when The Force Awakens came out and they were doing interviews, J.J. Abrams was doing interviews, and I heard him on many interviews talk about, well, Carrie hasn't acted in a long time, and they were difficult. He didn't have to go out there and throw her under the bus and trash her.
No, she said in interviews that she was really nervous to do it. So I think that hurt her a little bit, and I could just see her acting. She just doesn't seem like Leia to me. She's like really holding back and just very stiff. And Leia never seemed that way to me. Like the Leia in these movies has no depth at all. She's just very stiff and just kind of reads her lines. Mm-hmm. She doesn't seem like Leia, even though she is. But there was a lot missing there. I think she did the best she could. And I like Carrie Fisher a lot. I thought she was great as Leia. But in these last few movies, I didn't feel she captured that essence. And I could say probably the same for Han Solo, Harrison Ford. And maybe because they didn't want to do it, maybe it was too late. I don't know, but it just felt like things were missing. Yeah. Some people act and then they come back and do a character and they step right in, and it's like they don't miss a beat.
Yeah.
You know, and I kind of got that feeling with Billy D. Williams. But with those two, and even with Luke, I felt like he's right back in the role. But with Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford, I didn't get so much of that feeling. It almost felt like they were going through the motions.
Yeah, you know, Harrison.
Good to see them,
listen, Harrison Ford's a great actor, but he was not. He was not playing Harrison Ford in these movies at all. I agree with you. He seemed like
Solo.
Well, Harrison Ford was playing Harrison Ford. I meant to say.
Yeah,
he was not playing. He was not playing Han Solo. Yeah, I mean, it just didn't seem. It didn't seem like the Han Solo. Even though in this movie, when he appears in this bizarre cameo, he says, "Hey kid." That was nice when he said, "Hey kid."
That was really nice.
You know, when Han Solo comes out in this movie, in this little cameo, he looks like hell. He didn't. They couldn't clean him up and shave him.
The guy's almost 80 years older. He's old. I mean,
couldn't they shave the guy and make him look good?
The guy's dead.
Han? Yeah.
I mean, he is dead.
Yeah.
It's a memory, but yeah, I know what you're saying. But it was nice to see him, and you know, it was nice to have that moment. And it was very emotional.
But Ryan, I'll say,
Solo, I love.
You know, as we wrap it up, you know, Rise of Skywalker is good. They did a good job trying to correct the damage that they did. I thought it was great. You know, and there were some very good moments. And everyone's gone now except Chewbacca, 3PO, and R2-D2 is around. But Chewbacca is the last. I mean, I was watching over the weekend the original Star Wars movie, and I was watching the breakout scene, you know, when they go into the trash compactor, and they're all gone now except for Chewbacca, and it's sad.
It was sad for me when they killed Kylo, because he is the last of the Skywalkers, and that's what really bothered me. And I would have liked to have seen him live, and him and Rey end up together, and they have Palpatine Skywalker babies, and the lineage continues. But the lineage ended with Ben. I mean, he had no kids. Han and Leia had no other kids. Luke had no kids.
Yeah.
That bothered me that like was so final, ending that lineage. I didn't like that. They should have kept him alive. That's the only thing I really would have changed.
Yeah, you know, it might not have been bad to like do a flash forward like a few years, and Kylo and Rey are living in Luke's old house on Tatooine.
I would hope they'd have better digs. I mean,
what, they're moisture farmers?
Yeah. I don't know if they'd live there. That house is pretty beat up, and it's been abandoned for like 30 years.
Well, at the end of the Hunger Games, that's what happened. They were just, Katniss was just living, you know, boring life. You know.
No, I don't mind that, but I would have liked to have seen him live and them together, and then you kind of know, but, you know, I guess I'm kind of a romantic that way, but I would have liked to have seen the Skywalker lineage continue instead of it's just gone.
You know, when season 2 of Mandalorian comes around, we'll talk in detail about it. But so I don't want to get too sidetracked on it. But Mandalorian, which is like I say, Mandalorian is to Star Wars what Cobra Kai is to Karate Kid.
So good.
And not only are they bringing Ahsoka Tano in season 2, and they're bringing one of the female characters from Star Wars Rebels, who, you know, Ahsoka's in Star Wars Rebels as well, into this live action. And I would very much like to see some original characters recast, because this is like 3-4 years after Jedi. I'd like to see some in like season 3 or 4 of Mandalorian. I would like to see some familiar characters recast, including Carrie Fisher, you know, the Princess Leia character, come back to some extent. I would like to see that.
They could get her daughter to play. Her daughter's an actress.
Yeah.
They could get her daughter. I think her daughter was in one of these movies playing her as somehow.
She was in
films, right?
Carrie Fisher's daughter. I could be wrong about this. I think she was either in the prequels or Rogue One. I got to look it up. She was in a previous movie. Movie.
I thought she had played.
Well, I'll tell you what I mean. In Rogue One, they brought in Jimmy Smits playing his character from the original prequels. You know, from Alderaan. That was spectacular. When Jimmy Smits came in Rogue One, I was like, wow. And in Rogue One, the rebel base was at Yavin 4, you know. So when they do these things like that, which we saw some in Rise of Skywalker, I hope to see more of that in Mandalorian.
Well, this movie tied a lot of it in. I would give it 4 out of 5. Now, to me, Episode 4, Empire, and Rogue One are all 5 stars. Those are perfect movies.
Yeah.
I did not like the third Return of the Jedi. That's the third one.
I don't really care for the
Ewoks. I didn't love that one, actually.
But you know what? As much as I dislike the Ewoks, see, George Lucas created the Ewoks so he could have the new teddy bear back in 1983. But at the end of Rise of Skywalker, they show the Ewoks on the forest moon of Endor, and that is Wicket. That's with his family. He's a grown-up now, and he's looking at the First Order Star Destroyer going down, and that was
very cool.
And I'm like, oh wow, cool. So as much as I've disliked the Ewoks over the years, it was really cool to see that.
Yeah,
I mean,
you see it just for a second, the very end when you see the ships and they show the two Ewoks. That is, what's that actor's name?
I know his name, and I just forgot, Kathy.
He was in
Warwick Davis. Warwick Davis.
And that was him, and he's bringing his character with his family.
Yeah, and Warwick Davis was in cool. Warwick Davis was in Solo too. So he was.
Oh yeah, who was he in Solo?
He was one of that rogue band towards the end, and he wasn't in a mask. He was like his regular face. Yeah, you got to see Warwick Davis in that.
But I like it. I'd like to know what you guys think of this movie.
Rise of Skywalker.
Out of 5, what would you give it? Out of 5 stars, I give it a 4. What do you give it, Brian?
No, I can't give it 4 stars. You
are very hard to please. You know that.
I give Rogue One 5 stars. I give the original Star Wars 5 stars. I would have to give this one maybe 2.5 or 3, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
I give it 4 because it made me feel nostalgic. It made me cry in a lot of places.
Mainly because of Chewbacca.
It tied it in really well.
Yeah.
And I thought it really brought a lot of things full circle.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't like is they killed Kylo. That's the only thing I don't know why they got to kill everybody. Han, Leia, Luke, Kylo, all the Skywalkers are gone. I don't like that. But other than that,
Luke
I loved the fact that she's Palpatine's
granddaughter. I'm upset. Like I said, as we end here, because I don't want to restate everything, I don't like that they wiped out the importance of Luke Skywalker. And he has no legacy now. So, Luke Skywalker, everything in his life was a waste. And he went and spent the majority of his adult life living on that island alone as a drunkard. And it's just what they did to Luke Skywalker in this trilogy is a disgrace to me. So, as much as I like this movie, I got to hold that against it because it wipes out. Yeah. So I can't give it.
But we're talking about how the movie corrected a lot of the things they did in the first 2. And I think they did a good job of, like I said, filling in holes, correcting. Anyway, we're going around and saying the same thing. So I think we should end the show. Tell us what you guys think of the movie in the comments. We really do appreciate your comments. Please like and subscribe. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. And we will see you guys. Hopefully, we did a show without talking about you know what. So we'll see you guys in the parks hopefully soon.